In the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most gracious. In this lecture, we are going to talk about homeostasis and all the mechanisms helping in maintaining homeostasis. First of all, definition of homeostasis. It is the maintenance of a constant internal environment that called homeostasis. It is a self-regulated mechanism. Self-regulated means that can autocorrect itself. The area surrounding an organism is called its environment. And there are two different types of an environment: the external environment and the internal environment. There are three parts in the human body that help maintaining homeostasis. The first part is receptor, second is control center, and the third is effector. Receptor detects the changes in the variable and feeds that information to the control center. And the change is the stimulus that is detected from outside the body or from the outside environment. Second is the control center. It integrates data from sensor and stored set point data. And the third one is effector. It is the mechanism that has an effect on the variable. So receptors are basically the sensors or the sense organs which detect changes from outside the environment in the form of a stimulus and sends information to the control center, that is the brain of the body, which integrates the data from the sensor and store it as a set point. And effectors are the organs in the body which will bring some change as a result of the information given by the brain. Now, using the illustration, let's have a look how homeostasis is maintained. A variable is a condition that could be changed, regulated, such as temperature. This level board in the diagram represents ideal values called the set point. Any change away from the set point is called deviation or imbalance. For example, if there is any kind of change that is occurring in your body from the norm condition, that creates an imbalance. A norm is a set point or a conventional value. So when it will deviate from the norm condition, an imbalance would produce in the body. So when a deviation occurs, a variable is no more in homeostasis. The body would activate mechanisms that oppose the deviation. And why the body would activate mechanisms to return the body back to its normal state. Now in the picture you can see homeostasis, how it is maintained when some imbalance is felt by the body in the form of a stimulus. This change will be detected by the receptors or the sensors. These sensors would set information to the control center, which is the brain or the hypothalamus. And the brain would set information to the effectors, which are different organs of the body. For example, the muscular organs. I'm going to quote an example here. For example, if you touch a hot cup, you will retract your hand back immediately. The hotness of the cup was the stimulus felt by the skin of your hand. That was the sensor. The information was sent to the brain that the cup was hot and you retracted your hand back. That was the response produced by the muscles of your arm or your hand, which acts as an effector. So this was the response that was produced by the effector to correct the imbalance in your body. So let's take a closer look at homeostasis in action. First, a stimulus produces change in the variable causing an imbalance. Second, a receptor detects the change. Third, the receptor sends information to the control center. Fourth, the control center sends signals to an effector. And finally, the response by the effector controls the imbalance, causing the body back to its norm. There are few mechanisms that help maintain homeostasis. And these mechanisms are called the feedback mechanisms. So feedback mechanism is molecular and physiological processes are controlled by feedback mechanisms in your body. And the detection of the change by receptors and sending signals by control system to effectors for a response is called a feedback mechanism. There are two types of feedback mechanism. First is negative feedback mechanism and the second one is positive feedback mechanism. In the negative feedback mechanism, what happens? For example, if a change is occurring in your body, a mechanism would start working, lowering that increase that has started in your body. This is called negative feedback mechanism. This is a mechanism that opposes a deviation from a set point, means it would not let any change to happen in your body. Most common regulation mechanism is the negative feedback mechanism. Self-regulated mechanism. For example, a change would occur in the body and it would be corrected by the body itself. Negative feedback tends to stabilize a system, means it creates a stability in the system, a stability in your body. Negative feedback is mainly how homeostasis is maintained. So the corrective mechanism would result and will keep the body in a homeostatic condition. Negative feedback is more common in naturally occurring systems than positive feedback mechanisms. The example of negative feedback mechanism is to control water content in the body. For example, if the concentration of water increases or decreases in your body, the message will be sent to the hypothalamus of your brain, which contains the master gland of the body called posterior pituitary gland. It stimulates to release or to prevent the production of a hormone called ADH or antidiuretic hormone. ADH makes collecting tubules and distal convoluted tubules permeable to water, or it prevents the permeability of the water in the collecting tubules which are present in your kidneys. Thus, more water will be absorbed and maximum amount of water is retained in the body during the situations when there is scarcity of water, or you can say when the water is less in your body. ADH will be produced, which will allow more absorption and maximum retention of water in the body. As a result, the blood water content rises, which is sensed by the hypothalamus. So, the body would have to come back to its normal state, as a result of which ADH secretion slows down. Now, the positive feedback mechanism. It is a mechanism that responds to the deviation by making the deviation greater. For example, if your body is taking something, it will ask the other system to increase the production of that particular content. As you know, in the negative feedback mechanism, we talked that if something is increasing, the body would stop its production. But in the positive feedback mechanism, if something is increasing, the body would want it more. If the effector's response is similar or towards the change in external environment, this mechanism is called positive feedback mechanism. It will become clear when I will give you the example. Positive feedback response is to amplify the change in the variable. For example, amplify to enhance, to increase the change in the variable. Positive feedback is less common in naturally occurring systems than negative feedback mechanism. And its example is childbirth. Suckling is another example of positive feedback mechanism. In the diagram you can see suckling phenomena at the nipples by a newborn. As the suckling process would increase, Milk production would be increased by the mammary glands of the mother. A baby suckling at the nipple sends nerve signals to the sensory neurons in the hypothalamus, as a result of which oxytocin is made by the neurosecretory cells. Oxytocin is a hormone which helps the production of milk, and this is stored in the posterior pituitary. So there are two different regions in the pituitary gland, anterior and posterior pituitary gland. They both have different and very important functions. And when the oxytocin circulates to the target cells in the breast, it triggers smooth muscles, the contraction and release of the milk by the breast or the mammary glands of the mother. The milk encourages more suckling at the nipple, and more suckling would result into more production of the milk by the oxytocin produced by the neurosecretory cells. So example is suckling. Posterior pituitary secretes the neurosecretory cells to produce oxytocin. Thank you.